on any given weekend. On any given weekend at Mass, we sit in the midst of parishioners who every week sacrifice their money for the mission of Jesus Christ in his parish here, his parishes here. On any given week, we sit in the midst of parishioners who actually set time aside very often in their life to participate in ministry, to do all sorts of outreach, and to volunteer their time for various events. On any given weekend at Mass, we sit in the midst of parishioners who intentionally dedicate time outside of church to learn and dive deeper into the life of Jesus Christ. On any given weekend, we sit next to and are in the midst of parishioners who were here last weekend, who went to Mass the weekend before, and the weekend before, and the weekend before, and no matter what, whether they're home or not, whether they're traveling or not, they make Mass every weekend because they know that they can't live. Their faith cannot survive without Mass every week. On any given weekend, we sit in the midst of parishioners who foster a real and deep prayer life every day. We sit in the midst of parishioners who seek to grow closer to our Lord every single day, and they do so through a disciplined prayer life. We sit in the midst every single weekend of parishioners who understand that our parish and the mission of Jesus in our parish depends on them precisely in these ways. But as we know also, on any given weekend at Mass, we sit in the midst of parishioners who do nothing to sacrifice their money to help fund the mission of Jesus Christ in our parish. On any given weekend, we know that we sit in the midst of parishioners who give absolutely zero of their time to ministry, to outreach, and to volunteering at various events. We know that we sit in the midst of parishioners who do nothing to go out of their way and learn and dive deeper into the life of Jesus Christ by studying their faith. We sit in the midst of parishioners who were not here last week, or maybe the week before, maybe have not been here for weeks or months. We sit in the midst of parishioners who have no sense of a real prayer life and have no dedication to growing closer to our Lord in prayer. On any given week, we sit in the midst of parishioners who do not yet understand that our parish depends on them. We sit in the midst of parishioners on any given weekend that do not understand yet that their yes to God's invitation is something our parish and the life of our parish depends upon. And our gospel this weekend has something very important and unsettling in many ways to say to that, to say about that. Those who don't say yes to God's invitation. In our parable this weekend, our Lord talks about a king who gave a wedding feast for his son, and he invites all sorts of people to this feast. And on issuing that first invitation, he heard absolutely nothing back from those he invited. And so he issues a second invitation. And all he hears is that I'm too busy. And I don't have time for this. I'm going to go back to my farm. And then he hears that some of those servants issuing the invitation were mistreated and in fact killed by those that were being invited. And what's the king's response? What's the king's response to their no? I will not come. The response is one of death. The response is one of destruction. In the parable, the response was literally the fact that he burned, set fire to their cities. This was the response of the king to those who said no. And I don't think our Lord is going to set fire, at least I hope and pray that our Lord doesn't set fire to our parishes. But saying no is walking a path of death and destruction, a slow death, a slow destruction. And make no mistake about it, guys. Make absolutely no mistake about it. Our parishes are dying. St. Gabriel and St. Bridget parishes are dying. And if you don't believe me, we have only to look at the numbers. Over the last 3 years, as we've kept track of Sunday Mass attendance, we are down by 30 on average. On any given weekend, we are 30 less people than where we were 3 years ago at Sunday Mass. We lose 10 people a year and no longer at all come to Sunday Mass. For every child that we baptize since 2009, for every one child that we baptize, we bury 2 parishioners. For every baptism, there are 2 funerals. And between our 2 parishes, it's a net loss of 123 people since 2009. Irreplaceable. And RCIA is not replacing it. Make no mistake, our parishes are dying. And they are dying even though we have so many people who week in and week out say yes to the Lord's invitation. And we have a ton of people that say yes in so many ways, and we are still dying. We are not dying because of them. We are dying because there are still those in our midst who do not accept the invitation, who say no. Who say no. This is why we are dying. And we have this past year been working to thwart this trend of dying, to thwart this sickness that is killing us. There have been discussions and meetings and nights gathered and dedicated between our 2 parishes to trying to figure out what is going to bring us back to life. There have been prayer, questions, and ideas, all sorts, put forth by many, many people. Because we are not planning to die. That is not the plan. Even though, if nothing changes, we could be dead within 50 years. Both parishes closed, if the trend keeps up within 50 years. But that's not the plan. The plan for the Beacon of Hope is one of growth. It is a plan of hope. That's the plan. And if we work the plan, it will happen. Because much prayer, much discussion, much questions have been dedicated to this plan. But the success of this plan depends on those who say no to God's invitation, changing your no to yes. The success of this plan depends on those of us changing our no to yes. And no one is inviting you to do something that you can't do. In fact, your parish is not inviting you this weekend to give money. I'm not inviting you to say yes to giving your money to the parish. I'm not inviting you to say yes to taking on some project all by yourself. This is all I'm inviting you to do. This is all we are inviting you to do. This is all God is inviting you to do this weekend. Say yes to one meeting. One meeting, that's it. Tuesday, November 28th. Show up to the Knights of Columbus here in Connersville. Tuesday, November 28th. That's all we are asking you to do. This is how you can change your no to yes, by showing up to one meeting. And in that meeting, you will see just how much you are needed and how much your parish, we, depend on you changing your no to yes.